Hello viewers, welcome to our lecture series on Indian ethos in management, and today we are going to extend our discussion on the topic of character competence of corporation. This is going to be part 5th of our lectures on this idea of ethical philosophy, wherein we will be talking about how to improve character competence, what are the ways and means to do so, and how to go back to basics, and therein we will discuss about individual and the organizational metrics. We will also talk about how to reach towards ethical professionalism, and eventually we will talk about towards a new managerial grid and total value chain. So, this is what is a brief agenda about today's discussion, and from greedonomics to ethical economics, which I discussed in the previous lecture of mine, which is actually the essence of this entire discussion. And we all understand that there is a paradigm shift which is needed from greedonomics to moral economics, and eventually what we can call it as ethical economics at the marketplace. Because in market, whenever we enter, the usual practice or the usual understanding is that business is to do business only, that they are there to make profit only. But profit doesn't mean that you should run after greed or you should become greedy. So we have to actually travel, we have to actually leave the place of greedonomics or philosophy of greedonomics and talk about moral economics. And to a better way of expressing this word is ethical economics at the marketplace would be the appropriate word. And for that we had already discussed about the IOM framework, which is actually called as the holistic view of business ethics, where we talk about the implementation of ethical values not only at individual level but also at the level of organization and the marketplace. And that is why this IOM stand for individuals ethics, organizational ethics and market ethics. And we also discussed about their relationship, which is interactive in terms of its relationship, it is multiplicative in nature. So if there is lapse at any point, the ultimate outcome of business ethics is going to be zero. So as an organizational leader, if we want that business ethics should be implemented in its true sense, we need to be very focused or vigilant at all levels, be it individual, be it organizational or be it market. So at all three levels we are supposed to be meticulous in terms of implementing the business ethics in totality. Now the question comes how to improve the character competence, because everybody is talking about the problem and problem. What about the solution? Because by merely discussing and having a remorse for what market is doing is not going to improve the situation. What is needed is that we have to improve the character competence of the corporation, and for that we need to understand that there is a change which is needed in our intent and action, or what you call as ethical intent, which was discussed in detail in the previous lecture of mine. And we all understand that unless my intent is proper, unless my intent is good, I cannot reach to the desired level. So intention is more important for deciding the fate of business ethics in any organization. So the essence of ethics test lies in the intentionality in action, that while performing my duties, what is my intent, whether I am simply writing it as a part of my business norms or I am really serious about implementing the same into my business organization. So to improve the character competence, we have to understand that there is a classification of good, bad and malicious, which we have discussed in detail. And when we talk about individual and the organizational metrics and ethical professionalism or managerial grid or total value chain or redefining success, all these are basically one topic in itself. So if you talk about individual and the organizational matrix, this itself is a topic of discussion. If we talk about ethical professionalism, this itself is a broad domain where we have to understand that how to redefine the ethical professionalism, how to give a new definition to professionalism. Because in the name of professionalism, at times corporate entities, they are sacrificing moral and ethical values. They are discounting those values which are very much important for the business organization. So the ethical interface on various issues, it can be viewed in terms of an ethical matrix which reflects the individuals and organizational's ethical orientations. So, we have to understand that an individual orientation could be viewed in terms of unethical practice okay and unethical practices not okay. I am an individual, there are certain unethical practices and to my mind it is not okay. I believe that no, it is not good, and the same is the case of organization. Or at times we find that organizational orientation could be viewed in terms of unethical practice okay and unethical practice not okay. So, for the same unethical practice, there are two situations, there are two you can say broad poles. One is saying unethical practice to be okay, to be acceptable, another is saying no, it is not okay, and the same is for individual also. Based on these two polarities, these two poles of this idea or this broad continuum, we can actually develop a matrix which is called as the ethics matrix. So, the ideal citizen and ideal corporate citizen would definitely belong to a category wherein the standards of ethics are very high. If we talk about an ideal situation, then of course we have to understand that you can only be regarded as an ideal entity or as an ideal institution when your ethical values are very high, and they can only be high when you say no to unethical behavior. When you say that unethical behavior, unethical acts are not okay. Although standards of ethics suffer either because of individuals or because of organizations or because of both. So, you would witness, now you can think of an organization where you find the highest of ethical standard, and at the same time also recall an organization where the ethical standards are being sacrificed. So, you would find that those standards of ethics, they either suffer because of individual or because of organization at times, or at times you find both sailing in the same boat. Either organization or individual, both are happy in that situation where ethical values are being compromised. So, in that case only Almighty can help, this is what we say. But no, there is a solution to that situation also. At least to some extent, the situation can be corrected through norm setting and corporate governance. If we set a norm, if we develop a setup where the corporate governance system is active into your organization, then of course you can have a check over that situation where organization and individual both are not in favor of ethical values and situation. So, unethical practices on the part of individuals can be checked through norm setting, and the same for the organization can be raised through better corporate governance. If you have a proper system of ensuring corporate governance or implementing corporate governance, then of course you can bring change into that. So, based on individuals view and organizational view, we can find that what can happen, what can be the consequence of this if the view of individual is this, view of organization is this, and what are the consequences to that. So, let me briefly tell you about the possible situations. Let us start with the first situation where we talk about ethical synergy, which is regarded as a positive situation where ethics is in its synergy, or you can call it as a positive energy point, when at individual level or individual's view is that unethical practice is not okay. And the same is the case of organizations view that unethical practice is not okay. If you find these two combinations in an organization, you should be very much sure that yes, in this organization the ethical energy is now transformed into a synergy. So, both individual and organizations, they are working together to bring to bring a situation, to bring an organization which is of highest of ethical standards, which believes into the implementation of highest ethical standards, and that is why it results into ethical synergy. Now, you can find another organization where unethical practices are not okay at the level of individual, but they are basically okay at the level of organization. Then what happens? The situation of whistleblowers comes into the practice, or the name of whistleblower comes into the fore, that yes, individuals are not happy or not in favor of that those unethical practices, but somehow organization is reluctant about ethical standards. So, there comes the role of whistleblowers. They can at least raise their voice that this situation is not okay, and we need to have some checks over this kind of issue where organization is not following ethical values and standards. Now, there can be a third situation where unethical practice is okay at the level of individual, but the same is not okay in case of organizational view. So, organization is not in favor of unethical practice, but unethical practices are okay for individual. This is just opposite to the second situation where individual was not okay and organization was okay with unethical practices, and I told you about the whistleblowers. Here what is happening, that organization is basically not okay with that, but individual is somehow going for that. So, there we can go for moral counseling, or we can actually as an organization we can tell them that see these immoral practices, they will not be allowed, they shall not be allowed. And the last one is unethical practices okay at both the levels, where I told you that only Almighty can help. Yes, of course, why I said Almighty, because some superpower or some extra power will come there to intervene and stop such kind of practice, because neither organization nor individual is concerned about ethical practices. Both are sailing in the same boat and they are ready to sacrifice the ethical standards or practices. So, here comes the role of public interest litigation. So, it goes into the legal procedure where somebody from public may come forward and resort to this public interest litigation. So, we have to understand, my dear learners, that individuals and organizations view, they matters a lot, they actually matter a lot. Depending on their situation, their stand, their view, you would find the consequences into your organization. And in most of the situation, you would either find ethical synergy, or you will find whistleblowing, or you would find that there is a situation where organization is strongly in favor of ethical practices, and they go for moral conditioning, and they actually condition their employees that no, if you have to work in this organization, these practices are not allowed. And eventually the worst situation is where both are not okay with the ethical practices, or they are okay with unethical practices. There comes the role of public interest litigation. So, in this way, my dear learners, I tried to give you the idea about the individuals and organizations view about the ethical or unethical practices. The second segment, or the second way of going back to basics, is towards ethical professionalism. As I told you at the very outset, in the name of professionalism, lot of ethical values and standards or benchmarks, they have been sacrificed. Although the concept of ethics are inherent in the very idea of professionalism, but somehow over the years we have found an erosion in the meaning of professionalism. In the name of professionalism, that we should be professional, let's be professional and don't talk about the moral preachings and teachings. This is what at times we listen to some of the leaders. I am not saying all the leaders, but to some of the leaders. So, the word professional is today devoid of ethical content to a larger extent, we can say, and this is why we are discussing about this topic as a point of discussion under Indian Ethics in Management. It simply when we talk about professionalism, it simply refers to the skill acquisition. People feel that professionalism means you have obtained or attained or acquired highest of skills, the best of skills in that domain. That is only the professionalism, and because of that, the need for ethical professionalism as an overarching construct to indicate, to reflect highest ethical standards are maintained within a profession. You have to maintain the highest of the standards. The reason is very simple, cause most of the people, they believe that professionalism means skill acquisition only. They feel that it is devoid of ethical content. It has nothing to do with the ethics. It implies drawing up a code of conduct for professionals. We have to draw up, we have to craft and draft a code of conduct for the professionals who are working in that specific domain. And it also implies drawing up a code of conduct for the corporation. In fact, during recent years, what we are finding that efforts are they have been on the way to draw a code of conduct for the corporations, but still there are gaps as far as code of conduct for management professional is concerned. we find that ethical standards, professional code and ethics of ethics and conduct is there into the professional bodies, but still somehow at the level of organization they need to draw a code of conduct for management professionals also. There is no such body, and it has been rightly observed by many people, many thinkers, that to manage is the only management is the only profession wherein management graduates at the time of graduating they are not taking any oath. If you look at the medical profession, they are having Hippocratic oath. Before joining that profession they are taking an oath, that and which is popularly called as Hippocratic oath. So, if in medical profession that is there, why not in management, where you are going to lead an organization, where you are going to set an example by leading a specific corporate setup, and you are going to basically guide and instruct your employees and subordinates. So, even management teachers, they do not take any oath of ethical professionalism while teaching. So, unless I myself take oath of ethical professionalism, how would I basically spread that sensitivity or spread that knowledge about ethical professionalism? So, first or along with me there are many other academicians who believe that yes, the management gurus, management teachers, they should also take oath of ethical professionalism, and then it would percolate down to the management graduates as well. So, ethical professionalism is the way out to ensure the highest of ethical standard in any business organization. Some people even encourage unethical behavior in the name of pragmatism and smartness, they call it, that this behavior is very much allowed, this is called pragmatism. So, somehow they are trying to play with the words and jargons, but that is not the way to ensure a sustainable organization. The reality out there is the jungle Raj or of unethical behavior, and hence the survival of the fittest is the only rule there, and and there is an argument that we believe into the survival of the fittest, survival of the best, and in the name of that what is happening, other values, ethical values, they are being sacrificed. So, there is no effort and initiative till date to convert this jungle Raj to a civilized Raj, where people feel people behave in a responsible manner. Why do not we behave in a responsible manner? There is a limit to profit making also. There is a limit to extracting resources and using resources for our own benefit only. So, although people are increasingly getting sensitized, but still there at larger level, in larger context, you would find that there is a need to transform that jungle Raj to a civilized Raj, where everyone behaves in a responsible manner. And this I am not saying this is contributed by a study by Sadri, Jayashri and Ajgaonkar in 2002, and they had offered a meaningful definition of professionalism in their study, and they say that it implies a willingness and the ability to make a promise to deliver and to deliver as promised without compromising basic values. So, first you have to make a promise to deliver and then to deliver as promised. So, whatever we have promised, we need to deliver the same without compromising the basic values. So, the first step of ethical professionalism is that they need to make a promise. Unless we promise ourselves to resort to a path of ethical values, highest of ethical values, we cannot do justice to this very domain of study, which is not only beneficial for the stakeholders, but also for the organization at large. You can make your organization more and more sustainable, and this is the only thing which we want. The next, another way out is towards a new managerial grid, because when we talk about managerial grid, people recall the Black and Morton's managerial grid, which is a very popular idea, and it has been we are actually being taught this Black and Morton's managerial grid for very long. But the concern for production and concern for people, they constitute the foundational pillars of this grid. If you look at this Black and Morton's managerial grid, there are two concerns. One is for production, another is for people. That I have to be concerned about my people who are working in my organization, and also the production, and they constitute a foundational pillar of this grid. Although this two-dimensional grid, it need to be extended to tri-dimensional lattice. I would call it the three-dimensional lattice, wherein concern for values is included as part of the grid. So, why do not we include the concern for value in our grid, if we really wish to implement the business ethics in its true sense. So, this two-dimensional grid need to be extended to tri-dimensional lattice, and the concern for values is supposed to be included without any hitch. So, another way of looking at managerial lattice is the metaphor of the picture frame or the string model of managerial grid, wherein the grid hangs on the string of values. So, if we say that yes, this is the grid which Black and Morton has provided, but its survival is dependent upon the string of values, and that string belongs to the values and ethics. So, somehow if we are able to do so, then of course, nothing like that is there to solve this very problem of implementing business ethics into business organizations. So, stronger the string of values we find, better is going to be the character competence of the corporation. So, it is the string or the strength of that string which is going to decide or determine the fate of character competence of corporation, and this is the journey towards new ethical professionalism. And the new managerial grid can make use of the idea of polarities for creating a transformation from negative values to positive values. So, here comes the role of value system, that you have concern for your production, you have concern for your people, but if while doing so, while showing your concern, while implementing your concern, if the path is ethical, if the ethical values are being used as a string to that grid, then of course, it will ensure transformation from negative values to positive values, and this is what we want. So, our journey is headed towards ethical professionalism, and Indian thought provides a number of polarities. If we look at, one is the asatya satya polarity, that is falsity and truth. There are two poles of it, one is false, another is true. Second is anyaya nyaya, what you call as injustice and justice polarities. We have rajasatta and tyag, that is power and renunciation of power. On one hand, one person is running after acquiring the power, on the other we have a person who renunciates the power. So, Gautam Buddha is a live example of that, renunciation of power. Lobh and Sanyam, greed and balance. One person is greedy and another is maintaining balance, behaving like a very balanced person, Sanyami. Anachar and Sadachar, that is bad conduct and good conduct, and there are many other polarities. So, Indian thought basically offers a number of polarities. We do not have only two poles, we have multi poles there, where we can, by imbibing all these right ways, right paths, we can inch towards ethical professionalism, which is the only remedy for solving this situation. So, in this way, my dear learners, I tried to provide you the solution to the ongoing or existing problem of how to implement business ethics and how to go back to basics by these points. Some of the points are still there, which I will discuss in the next lecture of mine. Thank you so much.